Published, 17:33 Eastern Standard Time, the 17th of February 2018. Updated, 21:03 Eastern Standard Time, the 17th of February 2018. David Sharpe is reliving those first few months. Those months, 3 years ago, when Wigan Athletic became his kingdom and when eyes were fixed on the country's youngest chairman. The criticism and judgment of a 23-year-old man running a championship club, the talk of silver spoons after being handed the keys by his wealthy grandfather, Dave Whelan, weighed heavy. It probably still does. Wigan were sinking without trace in March 2015, suffocated by an exorbitant wage bill and heading for League One. Was their manager, Malky Mackay, worth the hassle after concurrent racism and sexism scandals which Whelan exacerbated before he left? The spoon had tarnished. This was a mess. David Sharpe became Wigan's chairman following his grandfather, Dave Whelan's retirement. Sacking Malky was my first major decision. About 4 weeks in, Sharpe says, sitting upright in the Wigan boardroom. I didn't want to give the impression I was just a kid taking advantage of the position and trying to make news, but the brand of football wasn't great. The work ethic at training wasn't really happening. I'm not surprised people questioned me. It's unheard of at my age. Maybe some felt I rushed into it, but I'd been working here for years, 4 years, in fact, which challenges the misconception that Sharpe was a complete novice when he took charge. He was fiercely opposed to Owen Coyle's arrival and instrumental in the appointment of Uwe Rosler in 2013. His running of Wigan since has by and large been positive. There have been critics, particularly when staff were laid off due to budget cuts, but the club feels stable even while bouncing between League One and the Championship. It is fundamental to Sharpe that the prospective new owners, Hong Kong firm International Entertainment Corporation, retain traditions. Both he and Chief Executive Jonathan Jackson could remain in situ if the takeover goes through. They insist Monday night against Manchester City will not be their final match. Whelan has no day-to-day involvement now, making the most of retirement in Barbados, and working for this football club felt like Sharpe's calling. He was a mascot at the old, rickety, Springfield Park. He played for the academy and he tells a story that both shaped his life and goes a long way to explaining his depth of feeling for Wigan. Whelan handed the job as chairman to his grandson after stepping down in 2015. They say I dropped out of Oxford Brookes University, says Sharpe with a smile. I might just have been kicked out. I knew I was just passing time really. What I was studying, hospitality business management, I knew I wasn't going to need. I always had my eye on running this club, so I'd done the first year. Second year was a placement at the Malmaison in Oxford. I missed work on a Saturday basically because I went to see us play at Birmingham instead. The best way to put his split with a university is by mutual consent. He learned the ropes at Wigan by shadowing members of staff before convincing Whelan he was the man to drive the club forward. That had not been his grandfather's plan. Wigan was all I knew, Sharpe adds. I used to sleep in my Wigan kit. I used to go to the away games with my dad. At 23 years old, the Wigan chairman was known as football's youngest chairman. Sharpe was only 11 and at boarding school in Yorkshire when his father, Duncan, committed suicide in October 2002. Duncan was chief executive at JJB, vice chairman at Wigan, and a significant reason why Whelan's vision was carried out. Sharpe, a pragmatist, does not often talk about his personal tragedy. It knocks you. It changes you, he says. There's no real way of dealing with it. You don't know how to. You still struggle to come to terms with why and the reasoning behind it. It's shaped how I am today. It brought us closer as a family. There's no looking back, because he would want me to enjoy my life. I'm running this club how he'd want, and hopefully he's looking down proudly on me. How my mum, Jane, coped I don't know. As much as I say I'm doing everything for my dad, it's my mum who's kept us together and strong. He took the reins in place of his father, Duncan, second left, who committed suicide in 2002. People don't realize when I was appointed, that lucky kid at 23, that it would have been passed down to my dad. I'm just doing the role my family would have wanted for him. That's why I'm working as I do every day. Everything I'm trying to do and put in place is because of them. 6 months before his death, Duncan boarded a helicopter to convince Nathan Ellington to move from Bristol Rovers for £1.2 million. He flew down to pick him up. Ellington must have been thinking, what is this? This is League One, you're impressed straight away with that, aren't you? We'd not made a name for ourselves then, so we had to splash the cash. In the end, Wigan splashed too much. Whelan treated the club as a hobby and, when the parachute payments stopped, felt he could no longer plough his fortune in. Sharpe slashed the wage bill in his first 7 months from £23 million to £7 million. Sharpe insists his life revolves around Wigan and being a dedicated supporter of the club. Key figures from the FA Cup winners in 2013 were sold and the club found itself in disarray after the Mackay gamble failed spectacularly on all fronts. Brave appointments followed. Gary Caldwell was followed by Warren Joyce, who lasted 5 months after Wigan saw the complete opposite of what they'd been sold by Sir Alex Ferguson. Paul Cook now looks set to lead them back to the second tier. The fan base isn't a Premier League size, says Sharpe. The stadium is too big for us. Great for Man City, and it'll look great on TV, but we'll have 8,000 here for Rochdale on Saturday. They're loyal, but that number won't grow massively. We have to know our limits. Keeping those expensive players could have left the club in a black hole we might never have come back from. We've been approached by a lot of people about takeovers in the past. Some are right, some are wrong. It's about finding the right people, and that's what we think we've come across. I'd love to stay here. Whatever happens, I'm a fan. I'd go in the away end, boardroom, wherever. I'd still be watching Wigan Athletic because it's all I care about. We'll be there at Man City, Rochdale or Scarborough. I still get excited for 3 o'clock on a Saturday. The young chairman also hopes to install a sense of realism into the Wigan fan base right now. Sharpe can call on Roberto Martinez, who is acting as an auxiliary scout. We text after games, Sharpe says. He blamed the Blackpool loss on City. He thought they had one eye on that. How can they not? It's only natural. He knows everything about this squad of players even though he's never managed them. I spent 5 or 6 days with him and his wife in Ibiza last summer and all we did was talk football. We'd be on Whiskout out in Ibiza. Gavin Massey at Leyton Orient came up. We did a bit of research, made some phone calls, got every bit of detail on him and then started watching clips. We signed 3 on the back of that week in Ibiza. That's the time Roberto's got for Wigan and my family, and that means a lot. People have started to realise that I do know what I'm talking about. I've got good people around me. Eventually people will eat humble pie, and I think they've done that recently.